Hey guys, welcome. Today is the day we're going to do a real-time rendering D5 video. And I've built some battle mechs since last time I did one of these. So we're actually going to create a scene and throw the battle mechs in. So come on over to the d5render.com, click on free download. That will take you to a download page. And from here, you'll see the D5 converters. And as before, and like I said, just go over this so nobody gets lost. Super easy. You find whatever software you're working with, whether it be 3ds Max, which, I think is going out. I don't think they're getting updated anymore. I heard something about that. Anyways, don't quote me on that. You got Rhino and you got Blender and everything else. This is all going to be on Blender. So we click download. And I noticed for some reason this is coming through kind of funky. So I wanted to start off here and click keep because it's trying not to let you download it. And so if I say keep anyways, boom, it's downloading now. And so now I can see what I've got. So just go ahead and click on the open file. This is not going to be installed like a zip file inside of Blender. So just double click on the launcher here and that will get you started. And then you hear that little fun sound that tells you that it's installing. So click yes if you want it and choose your language and hit OK. Make sure to accept and click next. Now this is really cool because now Blender 3.4 is included, and I think that's fabulous because last time I did it, it was 3.3. Let's jump over to my video from last time. You can see it was just version 3.3 there. And if somebody knows something different, update in the comments. And so anyways, let's go back over. And so now we've got 3.4. So go ahead and click next. And then go ahead and install that. And it'll do all the work for you. And then after that, open up a version of Blender that is 3.4. Do not open up 3.5 or 3.6. You're going to be disappointed. And don't get worried, that's still just my actual tutorial here from previously. Now, my recommendation is to get the Blender launcher, grab the stable version of 3.4.1. That is the one that worked out the best for me whenever I was using it. The regular 3.4 really wasn't too good, and just kind of loading all this stuff live here. All right, looks like I've got an update here because I haven't used it for a while. I think I'm going to defer that for now, get rid of it. So right now, what you would do, now that I'm in Blender 3.4, is you can go to Edit, you can go to Preferences, because it's been installed for you. You can click D5, and you'll see that the D5 converter is already here. Super cool. And this is version 0.7.0.156. Go ahead and check that bad boy on. And it actually lagged out for a second, so they've it's a little bit of bloatware just to kind of steal the Blender today's phrase work. So it's okay though, because this is going to be good. Now you do have a bake texture output folder here. You've got the D5 render path. You can change all of that if you wish. I'm just going to leave it the same. And then obviously over here in the end panel, I am now going to have a D5 bake out and a sync up and everything else. So from here, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I'll import, let's see, first things first, I'm going to use my add-on and I'm going to grab, let me make sure I don't have another version here, HSTB. Yeah, see, I got version 2.6 on here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that and I'm going to install the latest version of the add-on I created, which is Hard Surface Toolbox. Super cool, very useful. It got a whole list here of different models you can just import. It's kind of small at the moment, but it's going to grow and be much bigger soon. So I'm just going to throw this little guy in here, and actually I'm going to delete him. I want to append him in at the cursor just so I don't have to play with it. And this is the Uziel Battle Mech. I really like this mech. And I think this was the version I did a little bit of extra work on the feet. Yeah, this was fun. This was a ton of fun. And like this is offered up free in the Hard Surface Toolbox. There's some actual pretty precise models and stuff in here, things that are much more difficult to just get if you're a beginner or intermediate. So, you know, it's good. If you're advanced, and you're not going to like this kind of stuff because it's not done. And so it's like, but you know what? Doesn't matter, because this is not for the advanced people. This is for people who are trying to get off the ground, and maybe you want a model that you can texture, right? So there you go. Now what I want to do is bring D5 up, and let's go ahead and export. I don't have any materials or anything, so I'm just going to export. And it should just go ahead and create a new D5 file for me. So I'll just call this D5.1 and hit enter, and go ahead and export. It'll say export complete, successful. And I want to sync up, but it says please save the project. So what I will do is I'll actually create a blend file here too, and I'm going to call this D5.1.1 and go ahead and save that. So now that I've exported this, I've already created this file, so it doesn't have to do it again. And now I can sync. So once I press sync, D5 render engine is going to start, and at this point once it loads, I'll pause, and I'm going to kind of merge the screens. Actually, you know what? I won't pause. Okay, so it says D5 render is started. Please select. Click OK to create a new project, or you can select the project you just made. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have a clue where I actually put that. So, and also looks like I've got an update here. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay, so that's what I actually thought I was downloading. So I'm going to go ahead and update this real quick. I'll be right back. Make sure to do that, and we can upgrade to the latest version. And you'll see how it's retrieving the export and so on. And so just kind of unpause for a second. Don't touch this right here. Don't touch this. Just let it ride. I'm not sure what kind of errors would pop up if you try to change the screen while an add-on is downloading and collaborating with Blender directly. So just kind of let your screen do what it's going to do, and I'll pause and be right back. All right, guys, so I've got a little pop-up window here that's going to give us a display on some of the new features of the new D5 through 2.4. This is 2.3 on this side. You can see the way it looked before. Got some like darker AOs in the background that don't really look natural. And so if you drag this over, if that looks better to you, then hoorah. I think somewhere in between there would actually be kind of nice. But the soft glow and the transfer of light, the way they're doing it now with the more advanced ray tracing, it's trying to follow the path, no pun intended, of path guiding, and kind of render light deeper into the scene, which is great. And so they've got an emission effect in here that's going to be more intense. It's going to support global illumination of a scene, and so that's going to be good as well. And then, of course, the color of the light emitted from the emission material is going to correspond to the color of the emission map, adding more details and illumination to the scene. And then we've got surface scattering. This is subsurface scattering. This is going to be tremendous because this is before, and that's very that's kind of bland and opaque. And then you have a little bit more of a transparent look here, where the light would naturally be penetrating these grapes and causing a little bit of a glow effect, glossiness. I mean, those look real. That's really nice. And then you've got a higher output frame rate, which is very important because there was lagginess I noticed before. That's why I wasn't doing any more D5s. I was just like, it's not there yet. I'm not coming back until they do something and upgrade it. Okay, and there's a lot of upgrades. I'm not going to cover all of them because I'm just going to kind of get into it in a minute here, but I want to go over some of this. Optimize path tool. This is like a geometry nodes. I've got to investigate this a little bit more because I'm not finding any deeper information on it, but you do have a curve tool in here so you can create some animations, and that's going to be pretty important. And then we have an asset library update, which is something you would just expect, okay? And so they've got new characters, new dynamic vegetation assets, holiday assets, and new backdrops, which is all wonderful. And I've got a updates page over here And I'll put the link in the description for this if you can't see it. So I'm not going to try to read that off. So I've got a link here to show you what's new in version 2.4 and then 2.4.2. All right, and we'll just jump right in. All right, so I'm trying to squeeze everything in here since I'm just working on the laptop today. And so we don't have this synced up. I think it's just because of the upgrade that it had to do. So I'll stop that. I'm going to go ahead and click sync, and it should import the mech over here. And of course, I don't have a plane or anything yet. So, okay, so there we go. And it works similarly to how the regular 3D viewport works. And I think I've got that perspective a little messed up, so I'm gonna have to fix the perspective on how it looks. All right, so one thing I can do is go to the display and click smooth because I want to see something similar to what I've got over here. So that looks pretty good. All right, now you want to get this set up according to your liking, so just maximize the screen for a moment. And if you click the little camera icon here, you'll see that you get an option, the camera icon, you'll see you get an option for your render, and this would obviously be for a still render. And if you want to go into video, you'll get the video options, and we'll go over that closer to the end. And so you can have different projects and all kind of good stuff. Now, if you want, you can actually change everything. You can use the HDRI, which makes everything look a lot cleaner. And I really like using the HDRI myself. You don't have to. I think we can pull the light here, and we can pull in fog, wind, and precipitation, which I'm going to be using the fog and the precipitation in this one. So you've got your light, and you can rotate the HDRI. So if you want, you can go to the normal sky. This is going to be like a dynamic sky in Blender, and you can kind of change how everything would look. You can change the cloud amount, the cloud thickness, density, the height, like where the ceiling of this is actually going to be, the speed of these clouds if you have them animated and moving, and so on. And so you've got all the way up to 16K for the render, which I think is phenomenal. And let's see, I want to find somewhere I'm going to be good. Something about like that. It's pretty good. Now, if you don't want to control the camera this way, you would rather fly than orbit, then you can come over here to fly, and just understand that's a little bit of a different setup. But if you're coming from a different software, that's what you're used to, here's where you change that. That's a big deal because that's going to be very frustrating if you're not used to that. And so shift middle mouse will move everything around. You roll the middle mouse wheel forward, and then middle mouse will pan in and out. And then if you want, you can just move the model with shift and middle mouse, shift and right mouse even will move that for you. I'm going to go ahead and throw a plane in here. And in fact, I'll just use the hard surface toolbox. I've got a plane set up here where you can just throw in a little background, kind of scale this bad boy out to something like that. So I've got something for my mech to stand on. See how that looks. That's pretty good. And now I can export that, and then of course take this into a live sync. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and click the update here, and this will update the scene for the mesh and drop it over here. And then what you're going to want to do after that, if you have a camera, you can sync the camera over there. If you have a light, you can sync the light over there as well. And now if we want to sync these up together, just click View Sync, and it's going to link these together. All right, so that version, that setup was not transferring and syncing up properly, so I'm just going to stop all of that. And what I want to do is sync this up now, and I'll just start it over. It may have just needed to be completely reset, but we'll see. And I'll just click OK and let this bad boy load up. There we go. So that's better because I had put some extra stuff in the scene, including my background. It was not showing up. So that is much better. Wow, that's much faster than it was before, and now it looks right. Okay, so it just needed to be rebooted again for some reason. So whatever, completely close D5 after that upgrade and then start a fresh one. Alright, so now everything should work. If I click View Sync, I should now have the scenes linked, which I've always found it easier to pan and do things here inside of Blender. So just hit N to get rid of that. Don't need that. It's just taking up space. And I'm going to take up a camera view here. It does not include the entire mech. And let's see, Control Alt 0. I'm going to grab this and I'll go to the camera settings. I'm going to drop down camera and let's change this. I think 48 should be sufficient. And then I'll hit G and Z to kind of bring this up maybe. And I'm going to grab the background. And I want to scale the background a touch on the X. Maybe on the Y a little bit too. I'm going to scale the whole thing overall. I think that's pretty good. And then anytime you change stuff, make sure to sync update. And it'll pop up the new size, new resolution, new colors. So if I grab this guy right here and switch him to a light blue, I would want to sync that up. And don't get far behind, so like the update you do isn't going to be massive, okay? So that'll keep you kind of clear. Now I want to throw that camera in the scene, so I'll go ahead and throw the camera over here, and you'll see I've got a camera that popped up. And this is useful for resetting your scene and kind of having a baseline for it. So go ahead and click on that camera, and it's going to give you what you see over here in essence. And then if you wanted to, you could click the camera here and you could go ahead and do a nice little 4K render if you wanted to and just kind of render something out and then save that as a PNG if you like it, just so you can kind of see how it works. And I didn't want to get too far before I mention how you can rotate the sun. So definitely you want that sun coming in potentially from a side angle to give you some nice shadows or nice reflections, however you want to do it. And if you want to regain some more space, just click the camera icon again and it'll correct that for you. Alright, so just for the purposes of seeing that, you can kind of drop whatever you want in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and delete that little fake backdrop. I'll resync so it removes from D5 as well. I'm going to go into Assets, and what you do is go to Models and Landscape. And here we go. So you got some free stuff. Some is obviously going to be pay. If it says Pro above it, then you're not going to be able to get it. So you can definitely drop some different things in. And once again, here's the reason that I like to keep a camera in the scene, because I could just click here and it brings back the view that I actually want. And so that's pretty cool right about there. You can have a nice little background under it. And we can throw in plane with some foliage or something on it as well. And if you do happen to have a slower PC or you just don't want this stuff animating in the background while you're trying to build your scene, click display and click the little running man and that'll turn off real time. And so now don't forget that's off, but that'll save you a ton of memory while you're trying to do this because D5 is pretty smooth either way, but this will definitely help you out. And then kind of adjust your lighting because that's going to be pretty important. And just figure out what direction you want your light coming from for your mech to show the details. And if you want, you can turn the clouds on or off. You scroll on down, pick up fog. You can start kind of playing around with how the fog, or the volumetrics rather, is going to look. Just choose a color, kind of move that in there, kind of obscure the background a little bit. And then you could throw your precipitation in. That's actually pretty easy. It can be rain or snow. It does not matter. And you do need to have something for it to land on. I just noticed that my Renzo character is still on here. He transferred over. I did that for a scale comparison and never took him out. That's funny. All right, so I'll go ahead and throw in a plane here. Okay, not necessarily up there. That's fun. Could bring that 3D cursor down, selected cursor. There we go. That's a little better. Go ahead and bring that bad boy up, something like that. Come over here and sync the D5 because I synced up a new camera view as well. So when I hit the camera, it should pop me up pretty close. And that looks pretty good. And so now if you've got the plane in here, you can actually do some more work on this scene. And as you can see, when I turn on precipitation now, you can see it, but it doesn't look good because obviously we turned off the animation. And so now you have something similarly looking like this. There we go. Looks pretty good. You should be able to control the amount of it. You can make it snow, which I think is pretty cool. The strength, and then the puddles and or snow piles, whatever it is that you end up with. And don't forget, obviously, create some save points in Blender because you can always reopen D5 from where you're at, because you should be able to export this. So you would export this to D5A, and if you do that, you'll have this saved. So when this comes over here, it'll pop up and that'll be successfully saved. So you got to save over here as well. So I'll just go ahead and save this now, and we'll save this right there on the desktop. That's fine. And D5 new and hit enter. And now it doesn't say unsaved up here anymore. Alright, so now we can kind of spruce up the scene and add some stuff to it to make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to go to Assets. I'll get something like this little rock right here. And then once I come out, you'll see where this is. And you can kind of see how this looks. It's a pretty nice asset. And you'll have these standard controls in here. You can rotate this if you wish and kind of move it around with the little gizmo tool there, and kind of block things off if you wish. Now this doesn't have necessarily any kind of a good texture on it, so you can texture that if you want. Probably not going to go into all that at the moment, but I did want to put some actual grass in the scene somewhere, so let's throw in some grass. They said they upgraded that as well, so the vegetation looks more real and renders properly. That was a big deal. So you got a grass cluster here. And like I said, a lot of this is actually free now. It wasn't before. And so go ahead and select that. And I'm going to jump out. And that's pretty cool. So I want to scale this up, but I think that's actually fine. And I can just kind of place grass in here as I see fit, because there's a scatter upgrade as well, which is really cool. So I like that. And then I'll go in and figure out, maybe get like a tree, because I don't think that's an actual tree. So I'm going to type in tree and just throw some assets in here. And this is going to be quite basic for the setup right now, because it's just building out a scene and taking the time to do that instead of just showing you guys the features really isn't practical. So let's see here. What do I want? I'll just go with something like this, even though this looks like this might be for wintertime. All right, so just go ahead and click on that and then come back over to my scene. If it's going to let me. All right, that was fun. Not even sure what kind of muckery that was. And so I think it'd be a good idea to have part of your mech covered just to kind of show scale. And so I'll right click off of that, so now you can kind of see, hey, that's a tree, that's a pretty big rock, that's some grass. This is a really big mech, and there's a city in the background that looks kind of small. Also, this is cool. If you come over here, I really want to emphasize that you can throw geometry nodes stuff into D5, but you have to convert it to a mesh. And so if I was to grab this plane here and then pull up something like Bagapie, which is pretty much a free add-on that has a massive asset library you can buy for it. And if I want to put in a brick wall or something like that, and then I've got the geometry nodes to how this is supposed to look, and maybe the wall isn't a great example actually. Let me do something different here because I ruined my plane. And I'm going to dupe that and then hit J. And what we can do is we can put in something like the fence. That's going to be more fun. And so if you were to draw in some fencing like that, I'll right click out of that. And what I want to do is grab this now, this object. I'll go to object, and I want to convert that to a mesh. The geometry node disappears, which is unfortunate, but it's okay. And I'll run back to my split screen here, and I want to go ahead and sync that up. It should dump the fence in there for me. And there we go. So that looks pretty good. Go ahead and bring this back to the way I had it. So if you're not finding, if you're not finding something that you want in D5, you can make it in Blender and convert it to a mesh. I'm going to play around with the precipitation. Go ahead and go to display and turn all of that on. And then I'm going to come here and kind of start messing around with the fog. So you can do a lot with this. What I really want to do is just kind of barely fade in some fog. And I'll bring that back a touch. I think I'm going to have to type it in manually, 0.03 perhaps. All right, 0.01. There we go. That way I can just see the background, if you will. And then the lighting is a little tweaky. Not very happy with how sensitive this thing is. But you can always change other features here to kind of achieve what you want. And bring the light in and out. And that's kind of fussing me there with the geo and sky. So if you come over here and put in something like an evening glow, and it'll have a preset for you, which works out pretty nice. You can rotate the HDRI here as well and kind of change a few things to make it work the way you want. All right, so it didn't work very good before, probably something to do with the UVs. Go ahead and pause this. And what I want to do is grab my mech, and I want to go to materials and type in something like metallic. And I can find something in here that might work good for a mech. And obviously I'm just coloring the entire thing. I'll just go with a straight up black matte metal right here. All right, and now with that, and I kind of move this over to the side just a little bit, and then grab this. It'll have a teardropper, and you see it'll highlight whatever object. So just go ahead and left click on it, and it'll drop that material, which actually worked this time. I was having a heck of a time with D5 before, but I think they worked out like 99% of the bugs. And this is going to be really fun to explore because I'm kind of just coming back to it. So that's pretty sick how it's interacting with my mech. You can see it kind of the water particles and such running down. Do I have a mix here? Let me see. It looks like a mix of snow and... Okay, whatever is going on there. That's fun. But either way, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. There's a lot more to be done with this, as you can see, pretty endless. Just want to give everybody a D5 update and show you again because the new update is something to dive into. And I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks really digging deep into D5, and I'll come back with another tutorial, but just kind of give you guys an update and a heads up if you've already been in it. So I really appreciate everybody watching, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial lesson.